हेलो स्टूडेंट्स, वेलकम टू एनसीईआरटी ऑडियो बुक। आज हम क्लास 12th का चैप्टर सेकंड देखेंगे बायोलॉजी का, सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन इन फ्लावरिंग प्लांट्स। आर वी नॉट लकी दैट प्लांट्स रिप्रोड्यूस सेक्सुअली? द myriads of flowers that we enjoying grazing at, the scents and the perfumes that we soon over, the rich colors that attract us, are all there as an aid to sexual reproduction. Flowers do not exist only for us to be used for our own selfishness. All flowering plants show sexual reproductions. A look at the diversity of structures of the inflorescence, flowers and floral parts shown an amazing range of adaptation to ensure formation of the end products of sexual reproduction, the fruits and seeds. In this chapter, let us understand the morphologic structure and the processes of sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Angiosperm. 2.1 Flower. A fascinating organ of angiosperm. Human beings have had an intimate relationship with flowers since time immemorial. Flowers are objects of aesthetic, ornamental, social, religious, and cultural value. They have always been used as symbols for conveying important human feelings such as love, affection, happiness, grief, mourning, etc. List, uh, lead, lists at least 5 flowers of ornamental value that are commonly cultivated at homes and in the gardens. Find out the names of 5 more flowers that are used in social and cultural celebrations in your family. Have you heard of floriculture? What does it refer to? To a biologist, flowers are morphological and embryological marvels and the sites of sexual reproduction. In class 11th, you have read the various parts of the flower. Figure 2.1 will help you recall the parts of the typical flower. Can you name the 2 parts of the flowers in which the 2 most important units of sexual reproduction develops? Pre-fertilization structures and events. Much before the actual flower is seen on the plant, the dissection that the plant is going to the flower has taken place. Several hormonal and structural changes are initiated which lead to the differentiation and further development of floral primordium. Inflorescences are formed which bear the floral buds and then the flowers. In the flower, the male and female reproductive structures, the androecium and the gynoecium differentiated and develops. You would recollect that the androecium consists of the whorls of stamens representing the male reproductive organ and the gynoecium represent the female reproductive organ. 2.2.1 Stamen, microsporangium and pollen grain. Figure 2.2a shows the 2 parts of the typical stamen, the long and slender stalk called as the filament and the terminal generally bilobed structure called the anther. The proximal end of the filament is attached to the thalamus or the petals of the flowers. The number and the length of the stamens are variable in flowers of different species. If you were to collect the stamens each from the 10 flowers, each from different species, and arrange them on the slides, you would be able to appreciate the large variations in size seen in nature. Carefully observation of each stamens under the dissecting microscope and making neat and diagram would elucidate the range of the shape and attachment of the anthers in different flowers. A typical angiosperm anther is bilobed with each lobe having 2 theca, that is, they are dithecous. Often the longitudinal groove runs lengthwise separating the theca. Let us understand the various types of the tissues and their organization in the transverse section of an anther. The bilobed nature of an anther is very distinct in the transverse section of the anther. The anther is the 4-sided tetragonal structure consisting of 4 microsporangia located at the corners, two in each lobe. The microsporangia develops further and becomes pollen sacs. They extended longitudinally all through the length of an anther and are packed with pollen grains. Structure of microsporangium. In a transverse section, a typical microsporangium appears near circular in outline. It is generally surrounded by the four wall layers, the epidermis, endothecium, middle layer, and the tapetum. The outer three walls layer perform the function of protection and help in the dehiscence of the anther to release the pollen. The innermost wall layer is the tapetum. It nourishes the developing pollen grains. Cells of the tapetum possess the dense cytoplasm and generally have more than one nucleus. Can you think of how tapetal cells could become binucleated? When the anther is young, the group of the compactly arranged homogeneous cells called as the sporogenous tissue occupies the center of each microsporangium. Microsporogenesis. As the anther develops, the cells of the sporangious tissue undergo meiotic divisions to form the meiospore microspore tetrad. What would be the ploidy of the cells of the tetrad? As each cells of the sporangious tissue is capable of giving rise to a microspore tetrad, each one of the potential pollen of microspore mother cells, the process of formation of microspore from the pollen mother cells PMC through meiosis is called microsporogenesis. The microspore as they are formed are arranged in the cluster of four cells, the microspore tetrad dissociate from each other and developed into pollen grains. Inside each microsporangium, several thousands of the microspores of pollen grains are formed that are released with the dehiscence of anther. Pollen grain. Pollen grains represent the male gametophyte. If you touch and open the anther of hibiscus of any other flower, you would find deposition of yellowish powdery pollen grains on your fingers. Sprinkles these grains on the drop of water, takes on the glass slide and observe under a microscope. You will really be amazed at a variety of the architecture, sizes, shapes and colors designs seen on the pollen grains from different species. Pollen grains are generally spherical, measuring about 25 to 50 micrometer in diameter. It has the prominent two-layered wall. The hard outer bare wall is called exine, which is made up of the sporopollenin, which is one of the most resistant organic material known. It can withdraw high temperature and strong acids and alkali. No enzymes and degrades a sporopollenin is so far known. Pollen grain exine has a prominent aperture called germ pores, where sporopollenin is absent. Pollen grains are well preserved as fossils because of the presence of sporopollenin. The exine exhibit the fascinating array of pattern and designs. Why do you think the exine should be hard? What is the functions of germ pore? The inner walls of the pollen grain is called intine. It is thin and continuous layer made up of cellulose and pectin. The cytoplasm of pollen grain is surrounded by the plasma membrane. When the pollen grain is mature, it contains two cells, a vegetative cells and the generative cells. The vegetative cells is bigger, has abundant food reserve and large irregularly shaped nucleus. And the generative cells is small and floats on the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell. It is spindle shaped with dense cytoplasm and nucleus. In over 60% of angiosperm, pollen grains are shaded at these two cell stage. In the remaining species, the generative cells divides mitotically to give rise to the two male gametes before pollen grains are shed three cell stage. Pollen grains of many species cause several allergies and bronchial affiliations in some peoples, often leading to chronic respiratory disorder, asthma, bronchitis, etc. It may be mentioned that Parthenium or carrot grass that come into India as the continent with imported wheat has become ubiquitous in occurrence and causes pollen allergy. Pollen grains are rich in nutrients. It has become a fashion in recent years to use pollen tablets as a food supplements. In Western countries, large number of the pollen products in the form of tablets and syrups are available in market. Pollen consumption has been claimed to increase the performance of athletes and race horses. When once they are shades, pollen grains have to land on the stigma before they lose viability if they have to bring about fertilization. How long do you think the pollen grains retain viability? The period for which pollen grains remains viable is highly variable and so some extent depends on the prevailing temperatures and humidity. In some cereals such as rice and wheat, pollen grains lose viability within 30 minutes of their release, and in some members of Rosaceae, Leguminosae and Solanaceae, they maintain viability for months. You have you may have heard of storing semen, sperms of the many animals including humans for the artificial insemination. It is possible to store pollen grains of a large number of the species for years in liquid nitrogen minus 196 degrees Celsius. Such stored pollen can be used as a pollen banks, similarly to the seed banks in the crop breeding program. 2.2.2 The pistil, megasporangium, ovule and embryo sac. The gynoecium represent in female reproductive part of the flower. The gynoecium may consist of the single pistil, monocarpellary, or may have more than one pistil, multicarpellary. When there are more than one of the pistils may be fused together, syncarpous, or may be free apocarpous. Each pistil has three parts: the stigma, style and ovary, and the stigma serves as the landing platform of pollen grain. The style is the elongated slender part beneath the stigma. The basal bulbed part of the pistil is the ovary. Inside the ovary is the ovarian cavity locule. The placenta is located inside the ovarian cavity. Recall the definitions and types of the placentation that you studied in Class 11th. Arising from the placenta are the megasporangium, commonly called ovule. The number of the ovules in an ovary may be one: wheat, paddy and mango, and many: papaya, watermelon and orchid. In the megasporangium, ovule. Let us familiarize ourselves with the structure of the typical angiosperm ovule. The ovule is small structure and attached to the placenta by means of a stalk called funicle. The body of the ovule fuses with the funicle in the region called hilum. Thus, hilum represents the junction between the ovule and funicle. Each ovule has one or two protective envelopes called integuments. The integuments encircle the nucellus except at the tip where a small opening called the micropyle is organized. Opposite to the micropyral end, it is chalaza, representing the basal part of the ovule, enclosed within the integuments in the mass of the cells called nucellus. Cells of the nucellus have abundant reserve food material. Located in the nucellus is the embryo sac and female gametophyte. An ovule generally has a single embryo sac formed from megaspore. Megasporogenesis. The process of formation of megaspore from the megaspore mother cell is called megasporogenesis. Ovules generally differentiated a single megaspore mother cell MMC in the micropylar region of the nucellus. It is the large cell containing dense cytoplasm and a prominent nucleus. The MMC undergoes the meiotic division. What is the importance of MMC undergoing meiosis? Meiosis results in the production of four megaspore, female gametophyte. In a majority of flowering plants, one of the megaspore is functional. while the other three degenerates. Only the functional megaspore develops into the female gametophyte or embryo sac. This method of embryo sac formation from a single megaspore is termed monosporic development. What will be the ploidy of the cells of the nucellus MMC, the functional megaspore and mega female gametophyte? Let us study formation of the embryo sac in the little more detail. The nucleus of the functional megaspore divide mitotically to form two nuclei which move to the opposite poles, forming the two nucleated embryo sac. Two more sequential meiotic nuclear divisions result in the formation of four nucleated and later the eight nucleated stage of the embryo sac. It is interesting to note that these mitotic divisions are strictly flea nuclear, that is, nuclear divisions are not followed immediately by cell wall formation. After the eight nucleated stage, cell wall are laid down, leading to the organizations of typical female gametophyte or embryo sac. Observe the distributions of the cells inside the embryo sac. 6 of the 8 nuclei are surrounded by cell walls and organized into cells, and remaining 2 nuclei called polar nuclei are situated below the egg apparatus and the large central cell. There is a characteristic distribution of the cells within the embryo sac. 3 cells are grouped together at the micropylar end and constitute the egg apparatus. The egg apparatus in turn consists of 2 synergids and 1 egg cell. The synergids have a special cellular thickening at the micropylar tip is called filiform apparatus, which play an important role in the guiding of the pollen tubes into the synergids. 3 cells are at the chalazal end are called the antipodal. The large central cell, as mentioned earlier, has 2 polar nuclei. Thus, a typical angiosperm embryo sac at maturity known 8 nucleated and 7 cell structure. 2.2.3 Pollination. In the preceding section, you have learned that the male and female gametes in flowering plants are produced in the pollen grain and embryo sac respectively. As both types of the gametes are non-motile, they have to be brought together for fertilization to occur. How is this achieved? Pollination is the mechanism to achieve this objective. Transfer of pollen grains shed from the anther to the stigma of the pistil is termed pollination. Flowering plants have evolved an amazing array of adaptations to achieve pollinations. They make use of external agents to achieve pollination. Can you list the possible external agent? Kinds of pollination. Depending on the source of pollen, pollination can be divided into 3 types. First, autogamy. In this type, pollination is achieved within the same flower. Transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma to the same flower. In a normal flower which opens and exposes the anthers and the stigma, complete autogamy is rather rare. Autogamy in such flowers requires syngamy in pollen release and stigma respective, and also the anthers and the stigma should lie close to each other so that self-pollination can occur. Some plants such as viola, common pansy, oxalis and comminellina produce 2 types of the flowers, chasmogamous flowers, which are similar to flowers of other species with exposed anthers and stigma, and clistogamous flowers which do not open at all. In such flowers, the anthers and stigma lie close to each other. When anthers dehiscent in the flower buds, pollen grains come in contact with the stigma to effect pollination. Thus, clistogamous flowers are invariably autogamous as there is no chance of cross pollen landing on the stigma. Clistogamous flowers produce assured seed set even in the absence of pollinators. Do you think that clistogamy is advantageous or disadvantageous to the plant? Why? Second, netogamy. Transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. Although netogamy is functionally cross-pollination involving a pollinating agent, genetically it is similar to autogamy since the pollen grains come from the same plant. Xenogamy. Transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the different plant. This is the only type of the pollination which during pollinating brings genetically different types of the pollen grains to the stigma. Agent of pollination. Plants use two abiotic wind and water and one biotic animals agent to achieve pollination. Majority of the plants use biotic agents for pollination. Only a small proportion of the plants use abiotic agents. Pollen grains coming in the contact with the stigma is a chance factor to both wind and water pollination. To compensate for this uncertainty and associated loss of the pollen grains, the flowers produce enormous amount of the pollen when compared to the number of ovules available for pollination. Pollination by wind is more common amongst abiotic pollination. Wind pollination also requires that the pollen grains are light and non-sticky so that they can be transported in wind current. They often possess well-exposed stamen so that the pollens are easily dispersed into wind current, and the large often feathery stigma to easily trap the airborne pollen grains. Wind pollinated flowers often have a single ovule in each ovary and the numerous flowers packed into an inflorescence. A familiar example is a corn comb. The tassels you see in the nothing but the stigma and style which wave in the wind to trap the pollen grains. Wind pollination is quite common in grasses. Pollination by water is quite rare in flowering plants and it is limited about 30 genera. Mostly monocotyledonous. As against this, you would recall the water is the regular mode of transport for the male gametes among the lower plants group such as algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes. It is believed partially for some bryophytes and pteridophytes that their distribution is limited because of the need of water for the transport of male gametes and fertilization. Some examples of water pollinated plants are Vaccinaria hydrilla, which grow in fresh water, and several marine sea grasses such as Zostera. Not all aquatic plants use water for pollination. In a majority of aquatic plants such as water hyacinth and water lily, the flowers emerged above the level of water and are pollinated by insect or wind. As in most of the land plants in Vallisneria, the female flower reach the surface of the water and the long stalk and the male flowers or pollen grains are released on the surface of water. They are carried passively by water current. Some of them eventually reach the female flowers and the stigma in another group of water pollinated plants such as seagrasses. Female flower remains submerged in water and the pollen grains are released inside the water. Pollen grains in many such species are long, ribbon-like, and they are carried passively inside the water. Some of them reach the stigma and achieve pollination. In most of the water pollinated species, pollen grains are protected from wetting by the mucilaginous covering. Both wind and water pollinated flowers are not very colorful and do not produce nectar. What would be the reason for this? Majority of flowering plants use a range of animals as pollinating agents. Bees, butterflies, flies, beetles, wasps, ants, moths, birds, sunbirds and hummingbirds and the bats are the common pollinating agents. Among the animals, insects, particularly bees, are the dominant biotic pollinating agents. Even larger animals such as some primates, lemurs, arboreal, tree-dwelling rodents, or even reptiles have also been reported as pollinators in some species. Often flower of the animal pollinated plants are specifically adapted for the particular species of animal. Majority of insect pollinated flowers are large, colorful, fragrant and rich in nectar. When the flowers are small, a number of flowers are clustered into an inflorescence to make them conspicuous. Animals are attracted to flowers by colors and or fragrance. The flowers pollinated by flies and beetles secretes a foul odors to attract these animals. To sustain animals' visits, the flowers have to provide the reward to the animals. Nectar and pollen grains are the usual floral rewards. For harvesting the rewards from the flower, the animal's visitor comes in contact with the anthers and the stigma. The body of the animal gets a coating of pollen grains which are generally sticky in animal pollinated flower. When the animal carrying pollen on its surface bodies come in contact with the stigma, it brings about pollination. In some species, floral rewards are in providing safe places to lay eggs. An example is that of the tallest flower of Amorphilus. The flower itself is about 6 feet in height. A similar relationship exists between the species of moth and the plant Yucca, where both species moth and the plant cannot complete their life cycles without each other. The moth deposits its egg in the locule of the ovary and the flower in turn gets the pollinated by the moth. The larvae of the moth come out of the eggs as the seeds start developing. Why don't you observe some flowers of the flowering plant or any other available you too? Cucumber, mango, peepal, coriander, papaya, onion, lobia, cotton, tobacco, rose, lemon, eucalyptus and banana. Try to find out which animals visit them and whether they could be pollinators. You will have to patiently observe a flower over a few days and at different times of the day. You could also try to see whether there is any correlation in the characteristics of the flowers to the animals that visit it. Carefully observe if any of the visitors come in contact with the anther and the stigma, as only such visitors can bring about pollinations. Many insects may consume pollen or the nectar without bringing about pollination. Such floral visitors are referred to as pollen nectar robbers. You may and may not be able to identify the pollinators, but you will surely enjoy your efforts. Outbreeding devices. Majority of the flowering plants produces hermaphrodite flower and pollen grains are likely to come in contact with stigma and flower. Continued self-pollination result in interbreeding dispersion. Flowers plants have developed many devices to discourage self-pollination and to encourage cross-pollination. In some species, pollen release and stigma respectively are not synchronized. Either the pollen is released before the stigma becomes receptive or stigma becomes receptive much before to release the pollen. In some other species, the anther and stigma are placed at different positions so that the pollen cannot come in contact with the stigma of the same flowers. Both these devices prevent autogamy. The third device to prevent the interbreeding is self-incompatibility. This is the genetic mechanism and the prevents self-pollen from the same flower or the other flower of the same plant from fertilizing the ovules by inhibiting the pollen germination or pollen tube growth in the pistil. Another device to prevent self-pollination is to production of unisexual flowers. If both male and female flowers are present on the same plant such as castor and maize, monoecious, it prevents the autogamy but not a neutogamy. In several species such as papaya, male and female flowers are present on the different plants, and that is each plant is either male or female or dioic plant. This condition prevents the both autogamy and neutogamy. Pollen pistil interaction. Pollination does not guarantee the transfer of the right type of the pollen, compatible pollen of the same species as the stigma. Often, pollen of the wrong type either from the other species or from the same species, if it is the self-incompatibility, also land on the stigma, and the pistil has the ability to recognize the pollen. Whenever it is of the right type, compatible, or of the wrong type, incompatible. If it is of the right type, the pistil accepts the pollen and promotes the post-fertilization events that leads to fertilization. If the pollen is the wrong type, the pistil rejects the pollen by preventing pollen germination on the stigma or the pollen tube. Growth in the style. The ability of the pistil to recognize the pollen forward by its acceptance and rejection is the result of continuous dialogue between the pollen grain and the pistil. This dialogue is mediated by chemical components of the pollen interacting with those of the pistil. It is only in recent years that botanists have been able to identify some of the pollen and pistil components and the interaction leading to the recognition followed by acceptance and rejection. As mentioned earlier, following compatibility pollinations and the pollen grain germinates on the stigma to produce a pollen tube through one of the germ pores. The content of the pollen grains move into the pollen tube. Pollen tube grows through the tissues of the stigma and the style and reaches the ovary. You would recall that the some plants pollen grains are shaded at two-celled condition. In such plants, the generative cell divides and forms the two male gametes during the growth of the pollen tube in the stigma. In the plants which shade pollens in the three-celled condition, pollen tubes carry the two male gametes from the beginning. Pollen tube, after reaching the ovary, enters the ovule through the micropyle end and then enters one of the synergids through the filiform apparatus. Many recent studies have shown that filiform apparatus present at the micropylar part of the synergids guides to enter the pollen tube. All these events from the pollen deposition on the stigma until pollen tubes enter in the ovules are together referred as a pollen pistil interaction. As pointed out earlier, pollen pistil interaction is the dynamic process involving pollen recognition followed by the promotion or inhibitions of the pollen. The knowledge gained in this area would help the plant breeder in manipulating pollen pistil interaction, even in the incompatibility pollinations to get desired hybrids. You can easily study pollen germination by dusting some of the pollen from flowers such as pea, chief pea, calatoria, blossom and vicana on the grass slides containing a drop of sugar solution. After about 15 to 13 minutes, observe the slide under the low power lens of the microscope. You are likely to see the pollen tubes coming out of the pollen grains. As you shall learn in the chapter of plant breeding, a breeder is interested in crossing different species and often genera to combine the desirable characters to produce commercially superior varieties. Artificial hybridization is one of the major approaches to crop improvement program. In such crossing experiment, it is important to make sure that only the desired pollen grains are used for pollination and the stigma is protected from contamination. This is achieved by the emasculation and bagging of the technique. If the female parent bears bisexual flower, removal of the anthers from the flower and bud before the anther descent using a pair of the forceps is necessary. This step of the referred as the emasculation. Emasculated flowers have to be covered with bags suitable size generating made up of the butter paper to prevent the contamination of its stigma with unwanted pollen. This process is called bagging. When the stigma is bagged, flower attain respective mature pollen grains collected from the anther of the male parent and dusted on the stigma, and the flowers are rebagged and the fruit allowed to the develop. If the female parent produces unisexual flower, there is no need for emasculation. The female flower buds as bagged before the flowers open. When the stigma becomes respective, pollination is carried out using the desired pollen and flower rebagged. 2.3 Double fertilization. After entering one of the synergids, the pollen tube released the two male gametes into the cytoplasm of the synergids. One of the male gametes moves towards the egg cell and fuses with its nucleus, thus completing the syngamy. This results in the formation of diploid cell, the zygote. The other male gamete moves towards the two polar nuclei located in the central cell and fuses with them to produce a triploid primary endosperm nucleus (PEN). As this involved the fusion of three haploid nuclei, it is termed triploid fusion. Since two types of fusions, syngamy and triple fusion, takes place in an embryo sac, the phenomenon is termed double fertilization. An event unique to flowering plants, the central cell after triple fusion becomes the primary endosperm cell (PEC) and develops into the endosperm while the zygote divided into an embryo. 2.4 Post-fertilization structures and events. Following double fertilization event of endosperm and embryo development, maturation of ovules into seeds and ovary into fruits are collectively termed post-fertilization events. 2.4.1 Endosperm. Endosperm development proceeds embryo development while the primary endosperm cell divides repeatedly and forms a triploid endosperm tissue. The cells of these tissues are filled with reserve food materials and are used for the nutrition of the developing embryo. In the most common type of the endosperm development, the PEN undergoes successive nuclear division to give rise to free nuclei. This stage of the endosperm development is called free nuclear endosperm. Subsequently, cell wall formation occurs and the endosperm becomes cellular. The number of the free nuclei formed before cellularization varied greatly. The coconut water from the tender coconut that you are familiar with is nothing but free nuclear endosperm made up of thousands of nuclei, and the surrounding white kernel is the cellular endosperm. Endosperm may either be completely consumed by the developing embryo, example pea, groundnut, beans, before seed maturation, or it may persist in the mature seed, example castor and coconut, and be used up during the seed germination. Splits open some seeds of the castor, peas, beans, groundnut, fruits of the coconut, and look for the endosperm in each case. Find out whether the endosperm is persistent in cereals, wheat, rice, and maize. 2.4.2 Embryo. Embryo develops at the micropylar end of the embryo sac where the zygote is situated. Most zygote divides only after a certain amount of endosperm is formed. This is an adaptation to provide assured nutrition to the developing embryo. Through the seeds differ greatly, the early stages of the embryo development, embryogeny, are similar in both monocotyledonous and dicotyledonous. Figure 2.13 depicts the stages of the embryogeny in the dicotyledonous embryo. The zygote gives rise to the proembryo and subsequently to the globular, heart-shaped and mature embryo. A typical dicotyledonous embryo consists of an embryonal axis and two cotyledons. The portion of the embryonal axis above the level of the cotyledon is epicotyle, which terminates with the plumule or stem tip. The cylindrical portion below the level of cotyledonous is hypocotyle, that terminates at its lower end in the radicle and root tip. The root tip is covered with the root cap. Embryos of monocotyledonous possesses only one cotyledon. In the grass family of cotyledon is called scutellum, that is situated towards the one side of the embryonal axis. At its lower end, the embryonal axis has the radicle and root cap enclosed in an undifferentiated sheath called coleorhiza. The portion of the embryonal axis above the level of the attachment of scutellum is the epicotyle. Epicotyle has the shoot apex and few leaf primordia enclosed in the hollow foliar structure. The coleoptile soak a few seeds in the water, say of wheat, maize, peas, chickpeas, groundnut, overnight. Then split the seeds and observe the various parts of the embryo and the seeds. 2.4.3 Seeds. In angiosperm, the seeds is final product of the sexual reproduction. It is often described as the fertilized ovule. Seeds are formed inside fruit. A seed typically consists of seed coat, cotyledon, and an embryo axis. The cotyledons of an embryo are simple structure, generally thick and swollen due to the storage of food reserve, as in leguminous. Mature seed may be non-albuminous or albuminous. Non-albuminous seeds have no residual endosperm, as it is completely consumed during embryo development. Example: pea, groundnut, sunflower. Albuminous seeds retain a part of endosperm as it is not completely used up during embryo development. Example: wheat, maize, barley, castor. Occasionally in some of the seeds such as black pepper and beet, remnants of the nucellus are also persistent. This residual persistent nucellus is the periplasperm. Integuments of the ovule harden as a tough protective seed coats. The micropylar remains as the small pore in the seed coat. This facilitated entry of the oxygen and water into the seed during germination. As the seed matures, its water content is reduced and seed becomes relatively dry. The general metabolic activity of the embryo slow down. The embryo may be entered to state of the inactivity called dormancy, or if favorable conditions are available, adequate moisture, oxygen and suitable temperature, they germinate. As ovule mature into seeds, the ovary develops into fruits, that is the transformations of ovules into seeds and ovary into fruits proceed simultaneously. The walls of the ovary develops into the walls of fruit called pericarp. The fruits may be fleshy as a guava, orange, mango, etc., or may be dry as the groundnut and mustard, etc. Many fruits have evolved mechanism of dispersal of seed. Recall the classifications of fruits and dispersal of mechanism that you have studied is in earlier classes. Is there any relationship between the number of ovules in an ovary and the number of the seeds present in the fruit? In most of the plants, by the times of the fruit develop from the ovary, the floral parts degenerate and fall off. However, in a few species such as apple, strawberry, cashew, etc., the thalamus also contributes of fruit formation such as fruits called the false fruit. Most fruits, however, develops only from the ovary are called the true fruits. Although in most of the species, fruits are result of fertilization, there are few species in which fruits develop without fertilization. Such fruit are called parthenocarpic fruit. Banana is one of such example. Parthenocarpy can be induced through the applications of growth hormone and such fruits are seedless. Seeds offer several advantages to angiosperm. Firstly, since reproductive processes such as pollination and fertilization are independent of water and seed formation is more dependable. Also, seeds have a better adaptive strategies for dispersal to new habitats and help in species. Pole. The hard seed coat provides protection to the young embryo being products of sexual reproduction. They generate new genetic combinations leading to variations. Seed is the basis of our agriculture. Dehydration and dormancy of mature seeds are crucial for storage of the seeds which can be used as a food throughout the year and also to arise crops in the next season. Can you imagine agriculture in the absence of seed or in the presence of seed which germinate straight away soon after formation and cannot be stored? How long do the seeds remain alive after they are dispersed? This period again varies greatly. In a few species, the seeds lose viability with the few months. Seeds of the large number of the species live for several years. Some seeds can remain alive for hundreds of years. There are several records of very old yet viable seeds. The oldest is that the Lupinus architects exacted from Arctic tundra. The seed germinated and flowered after an estimate record of 10,000 years of dormancy. A recent record of 2,000-year-old viable seed is of the date palm, Phoenix and Dactylifera, discovered during the archaeological excavation at King Herod Palace near to the Dead Sea. After completing a brief account of sexual reproduction of flowering plants, it would be worth attempting to comprehend an enormous reproductive capacity of some flowering plants by asking the following questions. How many eggs are present in an embryo sac? How many embryo sacs are present in an ovule? How many ovules are present in an ovary? How many ovaries are present in a typical flower? How many flowers are present on a tree? And so on. Can you think of the some plants in which fruits contain very large number of seeds? Orchid fruits are one such a category and each fruit contains thousands of the tiny seeds. Similarly is in the case in fruits of some parasitic species such as Orbanchi and Striga. Have you seen a tiny seeds of ficus? How large is the tree ficus developed from that tiny seeds? How many billions of the seeds does each ficus tree produce? Can you imagine any other example in which such a tiny structure can produce such a large biomass over the years? Apomixis and polyembryony. Although seeds in the general are the products of fertilization, a few flowering plants such as some species of Asteraceae and grasses have evolved a special mechanism to produce seeds without fertilization called apomixis. What is fruit productions without fertilization called? Thus, apomixis is a form of asexual reproduction that mimics sexual reproduction. There are several ways of development of apomitic seeds. In some species, the diploid egg cell is formed without reproduction, division, and develops into the embryo without fertilization. More often, as in many citrus and mango varieties, some of the nucellar cells surrounding the embryo sac start dividing, protrude into the embryo sac, and develop into the embryos. In such species, each ovule contains many embryos. Occurs of more than one embryo in a seed is referred to as a polyembryony. Take out some seeds of orange and squeeze them. Observe the many embryos of the different size and shapes from each seed. Count the number of the embryos in each seed. What would be the genetic nature of apoptotic embryos? Can they be called clones? Hybrid varieties of several of our foods and vegetables crops are being extensively cultivated. Cultivation of the hybrids has tremendously increased productivity. One of the problems of hybrids is that hybrid seeds have to be produced every year. If the seeds collected from the hybrids are sown in plants in the progeny will segregate and do not maintain hybrid characters. Production of hybrid seeds is costly and hence the cost of the hybrid seeds become too expensive for the farmers. If these hybrids are made into apomatics, there is no segregation of the characters in the hybrid progeny. Then the farmers can keep on using the hybrid seeds to raise new crops year after year, and he does not have to buy hybrid seeds every year. Because of the importance of apomixis in hybrid seed industry, active research is going on in many laboratories around the world to understand the genetics of apomixis and to transfer apomatic gene into hybrid varieties. Here the second lesson of the chapter 11, class 11th is over.